Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi for February 7th, Friday, February 7th, 2025. We're at 52, Sanhedrin 52. Let's see here. So from at the end of 51, it says, Gemara asked in for Rabbi Yishmael. So it says, what does he derive this verse? So now we're in 52. What does he derive from this verse? She profanes her father. Leviticus 21, verse 9. If he does not employ the term her father for a verbal analogy concerning a young betrothed woman who committed adultery, as Rabbi Akiva does, the Gemara answers, he requires it for that which is taught in a Baraita. Rabbi Meir would say, why must the verse state she profanes her father? To teach that if initially they would treat her father in a sacred manner, now they treat him in a profane manner. If previously they would treat him with honor, they now treat him with degradation. They say, cursed is the one who bore this daughter. Cursed is the one who raised this daughter. Cursed is the one from whose loins this daughter emerged. Rav Ashi says, in accordance with whose opinion do we call even a wicked person? Rabbi Ashi says, in accordance with whose opinion do we call even a wicked person who is the son of a righteous person, a wicked person, the son of a wicked person, the son of a wicked person? In accordance with whose opinion is it? It is in accordance with the opinion of Tana Rabbi Meir. This Tana Rabbi Meir, who says that a sinful daughter profanes her father and he too is treated with disgrace. The Mishnah teaches, this describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned. That is, the process of execution by stoning. The Gemara asks, what was taught in the Mishnah with regard to which it teaches now? This describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned. The Gemara answers, the Mishnah states this because it teaches in the previous chapter, 42b, when the trial was ended in a guilty verdict and the condemned man had been sentenced to stoning, he's taken out to be stoned. And it continues in 45a. The place of stoning from which the condemned party is pushed to his death is a platform twice the height of an ordinary person. And since the Mishnah wants to teach in the next Mishnah the mitzvah of those who are burned, it will then proceed to describe the processes involved in carrying out the other forms of execution. It also teaches in this Mishnah, this describes the mitzvah of those who are stoned in order to summarize what was taught up to this point. Okay, the Mishnah says, the mitzvah of those who are burned. The process of execution by burning is carried out in the following manner. The executioners submerge the condemned one in dung up to his knees so he cannot move, and they place a rough scarf within a soft one so his throat would be wounded, and wrap these scarves around his neck. This one, that is one of the witnesses, pulls the scarf towards himself, and that one, meaning the other witness, pulls it towards himself until the condemned one is forced to open his mouth as he is choking, and another person then lights the wick and throws it in his mouth, and it goes down into his intestines and burns his intestines, and he dies. Rabbi Yehuda says, but if this one who is condemned to death by burning accidentally died at their hands by strangulation, they have not fulfilled the mitzvah of execution by burning for this person. Rather, the process is carried out in the following manner. One opens the mouth of the condemned person with prongs against his will, and one lights the wick and throws it into his mouth, and it goes down into his intestines and burns his intestines, and he dies. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Zadok said, an incident occurred with regard to a certain priest's daughter who committed adultery, and they wrapped her in bundles of branches and burned her, contrary to the process described in the Mishnah. The sages said to him, that court did not act properly. They did so because the court at that time was not proficient in halacha. The Gemara says, what kind of wick is the Mishnah referring to? Rav Matana says, a wick of lead, that is a long, thin piece of lead in the shape of a wick, which is melted and poured down into the intestines. And actually, sometimes candle wicks, I think, were made with lead to keep them straight and standing when they were burning. So that's probably not too far off from the idea. From where do we derive that burning means of this kind of death? It is derived from a verbal analogy between the burning that is described in the context of capital punishment from Leviticus 21:9 and the burning described with regard to the assembly of Korach when they were burned by God, Numbers 17, verse 4. Just as there, with regard to the assembly of Korach, they were killed by burning of the soul within the body, so the body itself remained intact, so too here, the condemned one is executed by burning of the soul, but the body remains intact. He is not executed by means of the burning of the body with wood, as in the case the body would be consumed. So Rabbi Elazar says, that there is a different source for this method of burning. It is derived from a verbal analogy between the burning that is described in this context and the burning that is described with regard to the deaths of Nadav and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, in Leviticus 10, verse 6. It says, just as there Nadav and Abihu were killed by the burning of the soul, but the body remained intact, so too here the execution is carried out by the burning of the soul, but the body remains intact. And this is going to have a type of connection between the type of crimes that were committed too. So the Gemara asks, from where does this one who derives that burning means this kind of death from the assembly of Korach derive that their bodies were not burned? The Gemara answers, he derives it from that which is written in the fire pans of these men who had sinned with their souls. Numbers 17, verse 3. Which indicates that only their souls were burned, but their bodies were intact. The Gemara asks, how does the other sage, who does not derive that burning means this kind of death from here, interpret the deaths of the assembly of Korach? The Gemara answers, that burning was actual burning of their bodies. And what is the meaning of the term with their souls? It means that they were deemed liable to be killed by burning due to matters of sustaining their souls. That is, they sinned because Korach helped them fulfill their bodily desires, and consequently they followed him. This later explanation is in accordance with the statement of Reish Lakish. As Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written? With the flattering mockeries of spitefulness, ma'og, they gnash at me with their teeth. Psalms 35:16. It means that because of the flattery of those people who flattered Korach over matters of eating, that is, because of the food and drink that he would give them, the minister of Gehenna gnashed his teeth over them, and they eventually sinned and fell into his hands. The word ma'og is interpreted homiletically here as alluding to uga, or a cake. So the Gemara asks, and from where does the one who derives that burning means this kind of death from the sons of Aaron, and they derive that their bodies were not burned? The Gemara answers, he derives it from that which is written, and fire came out from before the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Leviticus 10, verse 2. The term "and they died" indicates that it was similar to a natural death in which the body remains intact. And the Gemara asks, how does the other sage, who does not derive that burning means this kind of death from here, interpret the death of the sons of Aaron? The Gemara answers, that burning was actual burning. In that case, what is the meaning of that which is written, and they died? It means that the fire started from within them, and therefore it was similar to a natural death which occurs within the person, as it is taught in a Baraita. Abba Yoshi ben Dostai says, 2 threads of fire came out of the Holy of Holies and split into 4, and 2 entered the nostrils of this one, and the other 2 entered the nostrils of that one, and the threads of fire burned them. The Gemara asks, but isn't it written, and devoured them, vatochal otam? The usage of the expanded term vatochal otam instead of the terser vatochlem indicates a limitation. That is, only they were consumed, to the exclusion of their bodies. The Gemara answers, the verse means that the fire devoured them, but not their clothes. The Gemara asks, and let us derive the correct method of execution by burning from the halacha of the bull offering that are burned. Just as there, the reference is to actual burning, so too here, perhaps there should be actual burning. The Gemara answers, it stands to reason that one should derive the halacha with regard to capital punishment from the death of a person, either from the assembly of Korach or the sons of Aaron, as they share common elements. They deal with a person, a sinner, and a soul that is taken through burning. It is the person dies as a result of burning. Furthermore, the halacha of an offering that was sacrificed with the intent to consume it after its designated time, pigul, is not relevant in either case, whereas it is relevant to bull offerings that are burned. The Gemara asks, on the contrary, one should derive the halacha with regard to capital punishment from the bull offerings that are burned, both enable the fulfillment of a mitzvah, whereas deaths of the assembly of Korach and the sons of Aaron were not mitzvot. Furthermore, both of these are fixed halachot for all future generations, whereas the deaths of the assembly of Korach and the sons of Aaron were one-time incidents. The Gemara answers, though those elements that are shared by capital punishment in the deaths of the assembly of Korach and the sons of Aaron are more numerous than the elements that are shared by capital punishment in the bulls that are burned. Therefore, the halacha is derived from the assembly of Korach and the sons of Aaron. The Gemara asks, with regard to the one who derives this halacha from the assembly of Korach, what is the reason he does not derive it from the sons of Aaron? Because in his opinion, that was actual burning. But if this is the case, let us derive from the death of the sons of Aaron that execution by burning should be performed with actual burning. Why does he derive from the assembly of Korach that hot lead should be used? Rav Nachman says that Rabba Bar Avu says that the verse states, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself," Leviticus 19:18, which teaches that even with regard to a condemned prisoner, one should select a good, compassionate death for him. The method of burning described in the Mishnah is certainly faster and less painful than the burning of the entire body. The Gemara asked, and since there is the halacha of Rav Nachman, why do I need the verbal analogy? Even without this proof, execution by burning would have been performed with hot lead, as it is a less painful form of death. The Gemara answers, were it not for the verbal analogy, I would say that a death that includes the burning of the soul, but the body itself remains intact, is not burning at all, and that it does not fulfill the mitzvah of execution by burning. But if it is necessary to alleviate the condemned one's pain due to the halacha of, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19:18, let the court increase for him the bundles of branches so that he will burn quicker. Therefore, the verbal analogy teaches us that even internal burning is regarded as burning, and once this has been established, it is taken into consideration that he must be executed in the least painful way. Apropos, the deaths of Nadav and Abihu, an Aggadic midrash on the subject is quoted. It says, and it had already happened that Moses and Aaron were walking on their way, and Nadav and Abihu were walking behind them, and the entire Jewish people were walking behind them. Nadav said to Abihu, when will it happen that these two old men will die, and you and I will lead the generation as we are their heirs? The Holy One, blessed be He, said to them, we shall see who buries whom. Rav Papa says, this explains the adage that people say, many are the old camels that are loaded with the skins of young camels. To what is a Torah scholar compared when he is standing before an ignoramus? At first, when he does not know him, the ignoramus considers him to be like a goblet, lekiton, of gold. Once he has conversed with him concerning mundane matters, he considers him like a goblet of silver. That is the stature of the Torah scholars downgraded in the eyes of the ignoramus. Once the scholar has received benefit from the ignoramus, he considers him to be like an earthenware goblet, which once broken cannot be fixed. The Gemara relates, Imrata bat Taleh was a priest's daughter who committed adultery. Rav Chama bar Tavia surrounded her with bundles of branches and burned her. Rav Yosef says, Rav Chama bar Tavia erred with regard to two halachot. He erred with regard to the ruling of Rav Matana, that is, that burning is performed using a wick of lead, and he erred with regard to that which is taught in a Braita. It is derived from the verse, and you shall come to the priests, the Levites, and to the judges that will be in those days, Deuteronomy 17, verse 9. And at a time, there is a priest serving in the temple. When the temple is built, there is judgment of capital cases, but by inference, at a time when there is no priest, there is no judgment of capital cases. The Mishnah teaches, the Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Tzadok, said an incident occurred with regard to a priest's daughter who committed adultery, and she was executed by actual burning, and the sages said to him that the court at the time was not proficient in halacha. Rav Yosef says, it was a court of the Sadducees who interpreted the verse according to its straightforward meaning. The Gemara asked, did Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok say that to the sages, and did the sages answer him in that manner? But isn't a different version of the exchange taught in Braita? Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Tzadok, says, I remember when I was a child, and I was riding on my father's shoulders, and they brought a priest's daughter who had committed adultery, and surrounded her with bundles of branches, and burned her. The sages said to him, you were a minor at that time, and one cannot bring proof from the testimony of a minor, as perhaps you do not understand the proceedings properly. The two versions of this exchange do not accord with each other. The Gemara answers, there were two separate incidences, and Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok testified with regard to both. The Gemara asked, what incident did he tell the sages about first? If we say that he first told them about this first incident, that is, the one that is recounted in the Mishnah, this is unreasonable. If he first told them about the incident that occurred when he was an adult, and they paid no attention to him, but rejected his statement by responding that the court was not proficient in halacha, would he tell them afterward about the incident that occurred when he was a small child and think that they would pay attention to him? Rather, it is clear that he first told them about the incident, that is the one recounted in a Braita, and they said to him, you were a minor, and one cannot bring proof from the testimony of a minor. And then he told them about the incident that occurred when he was an adult, and they said to him, the court did so because the court at the time was not proficient in halacha. Okay. The mitzvah of those who are killed, that is the process of execution by decapitation, is carried out in the following manner. The executioners cut off his head with a sword, the way that the monarchy does when a king sentences a person to death. Rabbi Yehuda says, this manner of execution is improper, as it degrades him. Rather, they place the head of the condemned on the block and chop it off with a cleaver, bekofitz. The rabbi said to him, if you are concerned about his degradation, there is no death penalty more degrading than that. It is better for him to be executed in the manner described first. The Gemara taught in a Braita, Tosefta 9:3, Rabbi Yehuda said to the rabbis, I too know that it is a degrading death. But what shall I do, as the Torah states, and you shall not follow their statutes? Leviticus 18 verse 3. That is, it is prohibited to adopt the practices of the Gentiles. So the Gemara asked, and how do the rabbis respond to this claim? The Gemara answers, since decapitation by the sword is written in the Torah, it is not from the Gentiles that we learn it. It is Torah law, and the custom of the Gentiles is not taken into consideration. It is of no import that they have a corresponding type of execution. As if you do not say so, that a Jewish custom is not forbidden even if the Gentiles have the same custom, then that which is taught in a Braita poses a difficulty. The Braita teaches, one burns vessels and clothes over the deaths of kings as an expression of grief, and this is not forbidden for being of the ways of the Amorites. How can we perform this burning? But isn't it written, and you shall not follow their statutes? Rather, since burning items over the death of a king is written in the Torah, as it is written, and with the burnings of your fathers, the first kings who came before you, so shall they make a burning of you. Jeremiah 34 verse 5. It is not from the Gentiles that we learn it. And here too, since decapitation by the sword is written in the Torah, it is not from them that we learn it. The Gemara asks, and with regard to that which we learned in a Mishnah in another chapter of this tractate, so 76b, it says, these transgressors are those who are killed by decapitation. The murderer and the people of an idolatrous city, there is a difficulty. Granted, the people of an idolatrous city are executed in this manner. As it is written concerning them, you shall smite the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword. Deuteronomy 13:16. But with regard to a murderer, from where do we derive that he is executed by decapitation? The Gemara answers, that is derived as it is taught in a Braita. It is stated in the verse, and if a man smites his slave or his maidservant by the staff and he dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. Exodus 21 verse 20. Prima facie, I do not know what this vengeance is referring to when it says, and I will bring upon you the sword, avenging the vengeance of the covenant. Leviticus 26:25. You must say that vengeance is decapitation by the sword. Okay, the Gemara asks, but why not say that the executioner should stab him with a sword rather than decapitate him? The Gemara answers, it is written with regard to people of an idolatrous city with the edge of the sword, indicating that the execution should be administered with the edge of the sword and not its point. The Gemara asks, but say that the executioner should cut him in half, gistera, down the middle of his body. The Gemara answers that Rabbi Nachman says that Rabba bar Avu says, the verse states, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19:18, which teaches that even with regard to a condemned prisoner, one should select a good, compassionate death for him. Cutting his body in half is not a compassionate manner of execution. The Gemara asks, we have found proof that one who killed a Canaanite slave is executed by decapitation. From where do we derive the one who kills a free man is executed in the same manner? The Gemara answers, but is it not inferred, a fortiori, if one who killed a Canaanite slave is executed by the sword, should one who killed a freeman be executed merely by strangulation? The Gemara rejects this answer. This works out well according to the one who says that strangulation is a more lenient type of capital punishment than decapitation. But according to one who says that strangulation is more severe than decapitation, what can be said? It is possible that one who murdered a free man is in fact executed by strangulation. The Gemara answers, the Mishnah derives it from that which is taught in a Braita. It is derived from the verse, and so shall you put away the innocent blood from your midst. Deuteronomy 21 verse 9. that all spillers of blood are compared to the heifer whose neck is broken, as atonement for an unresolved murder. Just as there the heifer is killed by the sword and at the neck, so too here murderers are executed by the sword and at the neck. The Gemara challenges, if so, perhaps it should be derived that just as there the heifer is decapitated with a cleaver and at the nape of the neck, so too here murderers should be decapitated with the cleaver and at the nape of the neck. The Gemara answers that Rav Nachman says that Rabba Bar Avu says, the verse states, and you shall love your neighbors yourself, Leviticus 19:18, which teaches that even with regard to a condemned prisoner, one should select a good, that is, compassionate death for him. Although the type of capital punishment is derived from the heifer whose neck is broken, the most compassionate method of decapitation is selected. The mitzvah of those who are strangled is carried out in the following manner. The agents of the court submerge the condemned one in dung up to his knees, so he cannot move, and one of them places a rough scarf within a soft one, and wraps it around his neck. This one, that is, one of the witnesses, pulls the scarf towards him, and that one, the other witness, pulls it towards him, until the soul of the condemned one departs. The sages taught, the verse states, and a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, even he who commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. Leviticus 20, verse 10. The term a man is interpreted as excluding a minor boy who committed adultery before he became of age. The phrase who commits adultery with another man's wife is interpreted as excluding the wife of a minor boy. Marriage to a minor is not considered halakhic marriage. His neighbor's wife excludes the wife of another, that is a Gentile, who is not referred to as his neighbor. So, shall be put to death means death by strangulation. Do you say that this execution is by strangulation, or is it rather by one of all the other types of death penalties stated in the Torah? You must say that it is by strangulation, as everywhere that the death penalty is stated in the Torah without specification, you may not take it to be more stringent with regard to it. That is, to mean that the sinner should be sentenced to a severe type of execution. Rather, you must take it to be more lenient with regard to it. That is, that a lenient type of execution should be applied. Consequently, the sinner is sentenced to be executed by strangulation, which is the least severe type of capital punishment. This is the statement of Rabbi Yoshia. The Braita continues. Rabbi Yonatan says, it is not because strangulation is the most lenient type of capital punishment. Rather, there is a principle that every death penalty stated in the Torah without specification is nothing other than strangulation, whereas the other types of capital punishment must be stated explicitly in the verse. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi says, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan, death at the hand of heaven is stated in the Torah, and death at the hands of a person, that is, court-imposed capital punishment, is stated in the Torah. Just as the death at the hand of heaven is stated in the Torah is death that leaves no external mark, so too the death at the hands of a person that is stated in the Torah is a death that leaves no external mark, so strangulation. The Gemara asks, but why not say that perhaps it is referring to execution by burning, which also leaves no external mark? The Gemara answers, from the fact that the Merciful One states explicitly that a priest's daughter who committed adultery is executed by burning, one can learn by inference that this other woman who committed adultery is not liable to be executed by burning, but rather by a different type of execution that does not leave a mark, such as strangulation.